Hello, welcome to one of our next EdTech Byte sessions. This one is going to be on Google Forms branching. I'm Tina Nunez with Educational Technology. Today's section is going to be on something called Google Forms branching. So what it is it allows someone who is using a Google form to go to a different section based on their answer. The reason this is kind of good is because you can personalize student engagement for different things. You can save time to tailoring responses for specific needs. You can get some better data collection and organize it a little bit better. We'll talk about a few things to do and a couple things not to really do. Let's go over how to create a branch, and then we'll go over different applications for it from there. Okay. In this specific slide deck, I have all of the examples with steps. For step one is create those sections first after you kind of determine where you want things to go. And I'll explain why you'd want to do that here in a second. But I'm going to go over here to a brand new Google form. So if you've never used Forms before, you can either type in forms.new, or you can go to Google and then just look up Forms and create a brand new one. But Forms was originally created to collect survey data, and then they kind of upped their game within Google Classroom to do this with Google Forms quizzes. But here's the most important thing. When you are doing a Google form, the menus change depending on what type of question you have. Okay, so that's number one. And number two is this won't work if we don't have sections created. And right here is this icon. There we go. It looks like two little bars to add a section. So I'm going to go here and add a section. And I'm going to name the section. So we're just going to say if we wanted to do places to like visit in New Mexico, let's say we wanted like an interactive field trip or something like that. We're going to say Carlsbad Caverns here. That's one section. And then you can add your questions here for what do you know about Carlsbad Caverns. You can even add images here where you can look up images. The fun one, that's where the bats come out of. And that information is only going to be withheld within this section. Now, if you want a new path for students to take, you can go here to add another section. And now let's say instead of Carlsbad Caverns, just because most people know it's for this, they want to learn a little bit about the Balloon Fiesta. So now that second section is going to be Balloon Fiesta. I'll just add another image so that way we can tell really quick while we're building this out. That looks pretty good. Where those sections lie. So it makes a little bit more sense when we take it and it actually has something in that section. Now that we have those two sections and their names, this is where I go back up to the top and start creating that branching. And it'll make sense in a minute when I say why I make the sections first. I even cheat sometimes. So here's kind of a pro tip. You can right click when you name a section and you can add an emoji. I wonder if there's a bat. I'm going to put a bat here. So there's a little bat for Carlsbad Caverns. And then over here, I think there's a hot air balloon emoji. Let's see. Right click, got emoji balloon. Hot. You know what? As a New Mexican, I'm personally offended right now. All right, we're just going to do a regular balloon. We'll do that one. Now it's it and not Balloon Fiesta, but it's okay. So I've got a couple of emojis in the different sections. And I'm going to go back up to the very top section. So to create branching, you're going to want to put this final question. So even if you have a question for, so this is what I mean by that. If I put student name and they want to select it from a drop down or something like that, those types of questions should be before the branching question. Okay. The branching question should be right before that very first section you want them to go to. The next thing to remember is it has to be a multiple choice question, okay? The menu will not show up unless you select multiple choice. So now I'm going to say, where would you like to go as the prompt question? And then you're going to want to match the options to the sections. So I've built out all these questions before and then realized I didn't make sections that matched it, or I forgot to name the sections and then they're all called untitled, untitled, untitled. So I always like to start with the section first, and then I like to put the options in the same order as my sections. So now that I know that Carlsbad Caverns is first, I'm going to put that here, which I can spell. And then the next one's going to be Balloon Fiesta. And what's fun is you can build out so many different sections. If you're going to make a beast of a path that you want them to go on, I would probably map it out on paper first, kind of make it like tree branchy sections versus trying to remember and keep track of scrolling down and down and down and down and down and down. Here I have Carlsbad Caverns Balloon Fiesta, and then all you have to do, make sure it's a required question, and then select these 3 dots for more options. This is the menu I'm talking about, won't show up if it's not multiple choice. If it's a different type of question, these are going to be different options. So we want multiple choice, go to a section based on the answer. Once I select that, you're going to notice next to the multiple choice options, it now has little drop downs. So that's why I always say create the sections first, because now in this little drop down, when I select it, it's going to have those options to go to that section. Okay, so where I said Carlsbad Caverns, I'm going to select Carlsbad Caverns. That's kind of the reason I put the emoji, so I can do it really quick. Over here now, I'm going to choose the Balloon Fiesta one. And now when the students actually take this form, it's going to lead them to that section based on the answer they respond with. Now, most people get to this step, and that's a good step to get to. I'm going to go back really quick. Add section. We talked about selecting it as multiple choice, going to a section based on the answer. This is the step most people don't do, and then they realize this is why their forms don't work. You need to select the sections underneath. How do I put it? You need to select what you want to have happen underneath each section, or it's just going to keep continuing on to the next section. What I mean by that is it defaults down here underneath to continue to the next section. So even though it'll put them here first, they're going to keep going to the next section. So if you want them to submit or end or go somewhere else once they're in that section, you need to change this. So after they go to Carlsbad Caverns, I don't want them to keep going on to the Balloon Fiesta. I'm going to select this and I'm going to say submit form. So now they're going to end on that section. The bottom one doesn't have that because the bottom always allows you to submit. But if you don't want it to keep going and going and going and going and going when you're doing branching, make sure you do those section rules underneath each of those sections. Now, once I've got this, it looks pretty good. I'm going to create a link for a live form, and I'm going to put that in the Google Meet chat. But I'm also going to put it up on the screen because I'm recording, for you to see what that looks like from someone who's taking this actual Google form. So opened it up. Now each section sort of has its own page. So when a student selects their name and they choose to go to Carlsbad Caverns, it's going to pop out to Carlsbad Caverns and allow them to submit. There's nowhere on there about the Balloon Fiesta. So I'm going to go back. I'm going to pick a different one this time. So now I'm going to select Balloon Fiesta. You go to next, and voila, it takes them to Balloon Fiesta. So that is Google Forms branching. It's not super hard. Like I said, I added those directions here within the Forms branching slide deck. Oh, and always test your own form beforehand. People send it out and then they test it. That's probably the last thing you need to make sure you do. But in here are some things to keep in mind. Don't create branching sections with the exact same data. So if it's saying what grade are you in, and then it collects student name, student information, and then you create another section with that, it creates new columns on a spreadsheet. It makes it really, really wide. So think about only branching out for either activities like the one we did where you want to go to a specific place, or to collect specific data that is new or different data. You don't want to put it with a whole bunch of different sections with the same amount of data. If you do create a long list of branching options, consider adding those emojis to them or alphabetizing them so it's a little bit easier for kids to pick. Create section descriptions wisely. Like if I said, I'm going to go to option 1, option 2, option 3, that's not going to match the titles that said Carlsbad Caverns, Balloon Fiesta, and then that can cause some mistakes, right? So I'm going to put this slide deck in the YouTube description box. But what is also included in this slide are some practical use cases and some examples. I'm going to show you just what that example looks like from a live version, and then what it looks like when it's built out. I only have 3 of them, but I have a lot of examples in here. So there's some for English class. You can create narrative stories. Students can create them and have you walk through them. You can also create like interactive choose your own adventure stories. So the one that I have for that is a Disneyland one. So the students can pick which land they went to, because this was based on a student who took a trip, wanted to share their trip with the other students. And now it's going to branch out to Indiana Jones. And now they can watch the video about the ride. And there was another branch where they can either go back to Adventureland, back to the main entrance, or stop for food. So we're going to go back to the main entrance. And if we go to next, it's going to go back to that first section. And now they can go somewhere else. So this one was actually created, and I'll show you what that looks like here. Same thing where it was go to a section based on an answer with multiple choice, but instead of at the bottom of where it says continue to the next section, instead of submitting, it went back to that very first section or moved on to another section. So basically, this is like a giant interactive loop where they never are allowed to submit it, but then it makes it interactive. It's kind of like it just keeps going and going and going and going. And if you click on the image, it's an example that you can look at and view, or you can select this link here and get your own copy of the template. But there is a choose your own adventure for holiday traditions. We've created for research projects. So same premise where it goes down that path, but it actually has like little snippets for students to read or learn different things, but it branches out to let them choose what they want. You can also create reading logs with branching, same kind of premise. In this case, the Google form branches out based on genre. So if they are reading a nonfiction book, it gives them questions about nonfiction, like where they're headings, subheadings, or if they chose a fiction story, it's going to say what's the plot, what's exposition, what part is it on. So there's just a few ideas for ELA. Here's a couple of ideas for math. You can create really quick exit tickets that allow reteaching to happen like immediately. So what I mean by that, here is my exit ticket. Really quick, it just has a student name question, and then it says round this to the nearest 100. If I select the wrong thing and I go to next, it's going to take me to a section that has a video that I have to watch, and then I want to retake the ticket. Then I can come back and retake it again. Now, if I do select the correct one, which I better pay attention now, I'm going to look down on the screen, it's going to say, good job, you did a great job. The reason I like this, it's really quick and easy to build out, but I wanted to show you that when you create branching, you don't have to have a section for every response. This, and this are all incorrect answers, so they all go to review. The only one that goes to the end to submit it is the one that says, go to the section that says, great job. Something very similar to math facts practice. Students can choose which of these they would like to practice with. This one's more elementary based. It takes them out to math facts practice. So there's just a couple of ideas for math. Couple of ideas for science. This can be adapted for any type of lesson. This is kind of a beast of one, but it's a good way to show how it's kind of progressed from that easy exit ticket one for branching to you can get really complicated, which is the science one. So in this science lesson, it's like an entire unit all built out in one Google form. Students can choose life science, and from there they can choose the content area in life science. So if they want to learn more about ecology, that's going to take them to this section where they watch videos to review the ecology units we did, food webs, and then all of this is built into that section, which is a quiz, and then they can submit this part. Once they submit that section, they can go to submit another response. Well, they can view their accuracy and see how they did. Then they can submit another response, and now they can choose a different area. So they can go to Earth and Space Science, learn about the rock cycle this time, and then now they can go down this path of personalized learning. So now they can look at volcanoes and layers of the Earth, take that quiz. There's a lot of images included, and then they can go ahead and submit that section and then choose something else. So we made a lot of these during COVID, where students can pick their own lessons and things, so they didn't have to be there for specific things. But a lot of teachers kind of liked doing this, especially for review, because then students can pick those specific areas that they feel they're struggling with to review something. So all of these are included, as well as one for a science experiment version where students are asked questions of how's your progress going, but they're different questions depending on, is it an actual experiment or is it a demonstration experiment? And a few other ideas are you can use branching to collect parent information if you want parent helpers, if you want a different section for parent permissions for certain things. And then the final one is a classroom behavior one, where students sit down and they write out, what was your behavior? What did you want to get from this? And then it will lead them to different strategies. So you can use it for a lot of different things. These are all in this slide deck. If you want some more help, go ahead and reach out to Educational Technology, which leads me to my last slide, which are some upcoming EdTech Byte sessions. And then if you want some more tips and tricks and ideas on how to create a form for good data in the end, and basically backwards planning out from a spreadsheet perspective into a Google form, then I'm going to be doing that session on December 16th.